Draw near, beloved. There is a story that needs telling. A story about love that bleeds through splinters and sawdust, in the jagged spaces between words that should have been spoken but never were. Some fathers love loud. Frank loved like a wound that never quite healed. His love lived in weathered hands guiding small fingers across rough wood, in Saturday mornings that became sacred ritual. In a workshop where 8-year-old Michael learned that real men build things that last. Every weekend, father and son stood side by side at the workbench. Frank would watch those tiny hands struggle with tools too heavy, too foreign. But he saw something holy in the trying. This was his chance to build more than birdhouses. He was building a man. For years, that promise held like strong joints in good wood. Michael would burst through the workshop door at 8 sharp. Frank would nod when cuts were clean, point out flaws when they weren't. He taught like his own father had taught him, with standards instead of praise, with correction instead of comfort. Frank thought he was building character. He was building walls that would take decades to tear down. Then adolescence crept in like rot in green wood. 14 brought science fairs, 15 brought college prep, 16 brought engineering dreams and futures that whispered wood was obsolete. The Saturday calls started. Always something more urgent than standing with old tools and older love. Frank would swallow words that felt like splinters in his throat, telling Michael that school came first. What he meant, don't leave me here drowning in all this love I never learned to give you. But Michael was already gone, building bridges instead of jewelry boxes, creating a life with no room for his father's calloused hands. Still, every Saturday at 8, Frank prepared the workshop, tools for 2. Hope bleeding slowly to death. In the silence, he built different things. A desk for the engineer his son would become. A cradle for grandchildren who might never know their grandfather's love lived in wood grain and careful joints. Years stretched between them like unfinished projects gathering dust and regret. At 75, arthritis stealing steadiness from his hands, Frank made a choice that felt like sawing through his own heart. He called Michael, asked for help packing up the workshop, selling the house, moving somewhere smaller, quieter, lonelier. That Saturday morning they stood together for the first time in over a decade. Michael stared at masterpieces lining the walls, works of art he had never seen before. Frank's voice caught as he explained, projects to keep busy, a desk made for his son's future, a cradle carved for grandchildren not yet born, love expressed in the only language Frank knew. Then Frank pulled out the wooden box, carved with Michael's name in letters worn smooth by worried fingers. Inside lay decades of documented pride. Every newspaper clipping, every achievement, every small mention carefully preserved like pressed flowers. At the bottom, a leather journal, Frank's careful handwriting recording what he could never say out loud. Years of watching his son become magnificent while feeling completely useless. Michael's hands shook as he read entry after entry. The truth hit like a hammer blow. He had spent decades starving for approval that was always there, just hidden, just bleeding quietly in the spaces between them. They drove to the coffee shop afterward. The owner lit up when they walked in together, telling Michael how his father talked about him every morning, how Frank showed pictures of his engineering projects to anyone willing to look. In the truck afterward, silence stretched between them like an open wound finally ready to heal. Michael's voice cracked first. Why didn't you ever tell me you were proud? Why did you hide it? Frank's hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. I was scared, son, scared if I told you how perfect you were, you would stop trying to be better. My father never said those words to me, and I thought love was supposed to make you stronger, not softer. But I thought you were disappointed in me. Thought I had failed you by leaving the workshop. Frank's voice broke open like kindling. Oh, Michael, you didn't fail anything. You took every tool I tried to give you, the patience, the precision, the refusal to settle, and you built something I never could have imagined. You became better than anything I ever dreamed of making with these hands. 2 grown men sitting in an old truck, finally bleeding truth into the space that had been poisoned by silence for too long. That evening, Michael held up a worn chisel. Can I keep this? Maybe set up a workshop. Think about you on Saturday mornings. Frank nodded, throat raw with words he had wasted decades not saying. That my child is how I love you. Like Frank with his patient vigil, documenting every moment of your growth, even when you cannot see me watching, building gifts for your future in the silence. Bleeding pride into prayers you never hear. I have been proud of you through every season, every choice, every step toward who you were meant to become. And now I pray, Father, I have misread your love for so long. Like Michael, I thought your silence meant disappointment. But you have been documenting my journey, building gifts in the workshop of your grace. Help me see that your correction comes from love, not condemnation. Thank you for the patience to let me become who you created me to be. I am coming back to your workshop ready to learn again. In Jesus' name, amen.